Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at Machamp VMAX. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It finally happened. Machamp VMAX is finally coming. This, of course, been a pretty big deal, because I've told you a few times, including quite recently, that we've got Hatterene, Machamp, and Melmetal, and they are the only three Pokemon that have proper Gigantamax forms in the games, but don't have VMAX cards. Of course, when a Pokemon has a Gigantamax form, the VMAX card will be in the Gigantamax form, although there's plenty of VMAXs that are of non-Gigantamax, just, regular Dynamax. But the point is, these three have been hanging over for a while. Well, we finally have Machamp VMAX. As a side note, I need to point out, it is not guaranteed, let's be clear, but I think at this stage, highly likely that Melmetal VMAX is going to be in that Pokemon Go set. Like I've explained to you in previous videos, really, Pokemon Go, the one kind of new Pokemon they had was Melmetal. That is the Pokemon Go Pokemon. We know for a fact that there are going to be VMAXs in the Pokemon Go set. That was included in the description of the set when it was listed on some Japanese websites. So, again, I can't actually promise you, but if you put that all together, that seems pretty likely, doesn't it? We do have a couple of other cards we need to talk about. We'll get there in due course. I also want to point out, just nice and quickly, I told you we were getting Machamp VSTAR in the Pokemon Go set. There is actually a question of whether it's Machamp or Dragonite, because the names are crazy similar in Japan, but I've done some digging around. It does still seem like it is Machamp. But I told you we weren't getting Machamp VMAX in the Pokemon Go set, because we were getting Machamp VSTAR, and that is now turned out to be true. We are getting Machamp VMAX, but it is coming around in Sword and Shield 10 over in Japan, which does answer another question, because I told you there were going to be two VMAXs in Astral Radiance. That was confirmed. We were told that clearly. Then we found out that Heatran V was going to be one of them. So now we were just waiting for what the other one would be, and it is going to be Machamp. One in Sword and Shield 10P. That's your Heatran. That's your Palkia set. And one in Sword and Shield 10D. That is your Machamp. That is your Dialga set. So now we got one of these in each of the packs, and life is good. Why they brought one random VMAX back into each of these two sets, I don't really understand, if I'm honest with you. It doesn't really make any sense to me, but they have, and I'm just kind of happy we got Machamp, honestly. This seems fun to me. But is Machamp actually any good? And then we'll look at some other cards in a moment as we go. Well, what we've got here is a fairly beefy 330 HP. We've seen 340, but 330 is still quite high. We do have a weakness to Mew, and I'll be honest with you, weakness to Mew is a bit of a big deal nowadays, because sure, it didn't make top 8 in Salt Lake City, but I don't think anyone can really argue that it's not a top deck right now, so be wary of Mew. But we do have a couple of attacks here that look pretty gosh darn good. For one fighting, one colourless energy, translations of course from the lovely Antoine Boulet. Who else? 80 damage, but if your bench Pokemon have any damage counters on them, this attack does 140 more damage. So what you're looking for is any damage counters on any of your bench Pokemon, and you're hitting 220 damage. And of course, as I've explained to you many times before, 220 is a real key number in the Pokemon TCG. 220 is generally what you need to get a one-hit KO on Pokemon V. The vast majority, there's a couple of outliers, but the vast majority of Pokemon V have 220 or less. So, yeah. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? This will do rather nicely. It is for 2 energy, but firstly, you've taken a turn to evolve, you could have attached an energy. Secondly, obviously, we've always got Arceus VSTAR now hanging out there, ready to accelerate energy to any Pokemon V. But don't forget, we've got that Gritty Pickaxe card coming, which is already out in Japan. That's the one that lets you look at the top of your deck, top card of your deck. And then if it's a fighting energy, you attach it to one of your fighting Pokemon, and if it's not, you just draw it. It draws a card, but if it's a fighting energy, you can attach it. So that will actually work quite nicely to get the second energy onto Machamp here. 220, 2 energy, I mean, put it this way. Victini has been a good VMAX that has seen a bunch of play. We have played Victini. It's done well in tournaments. And Victini is 2 energy, 220 only to a Pokemon V. This is 2 energy, 220 to anything, and you've got an extra 20 HP. Yes, I am aware that Victini was better when we still had Welder, but I've seen people play it since Welder rotated. Frankly, I like this. I think this is a really good first attack. And you're doing the damage against anything, not just Pokemon V. I don't think that second energy is a huge problem. I like the HP, and let's not forget that because you're a fighting Pokemon, you're hitting weakness against Arceus, which is a pretty big deal right now. And you're hitting weakness against Gengar, which is a pretty big deal right now. So you'll one-hit KO those VMAXs and V-Stars for 2 energy. It's a really good attack. I like this. When it came around to Heatran VMAX, I was not really much of a fan. I didn't think there was much going for it. I like Machamp a whole heap more. I think Machamp could be really genuinely good. Yes, it's got a rough weakness to Mew, but play something that isn't Psychic Weak to go along with it. Yay, they're done. I think this one could be a bit of a contender. For 3 energy, you're then hitting 240 damage, but you can't use G-Max Juggernauts during your next turn. That's what it's called. This is fine, honestly, but you're basically attaching an extra energy to do 20 more damage. And sometimes that will be totally relevant, and where it is, that's brilliant. But honestly, I mean, right. The way the maths works out is, with a choice belt, this goes up to 270, and that won't be enough to KO everything, but it'll KO most V-Stars. It'll just miss the big ones that have 280 and aren't weak. 280 is the most we've seen so far. Whereas 220 with a choice belt goes to 250, and that's not the same. So actually, yes, this 20 damage could be relevant, because it could get you up to KOing those V-Star that you'd otherwise be missing. At this stage, it might be worth mentioning one of the stadium cards I've told you about recently, that Gapejaw Bog Stadium. That's the one that is basically Team Magma's secret base. When you bench a basic Pokemon, either player, take 2 damage counters. And this will do 2 things. Firstly, it will put the damage on your bench Pokemon to activate your first attack. I didn't actually mention it a moment ago, but let me make it super clear here. I am really not worried about getting damage on my bench, because if my opponent doesn't damage my bench, I can just play something like this and I'll be absolutely fine. But also now, with a second attack, I'm hitting 240, add a choice bout 270. If my opponent's benched with the stadium out, that's 290, and all of a sudden I'm one-hit KOing any of these V-Star. So you've got a Pokemon with a really good first attack that goes and gets KOs on any Pokemon V pretty much, and a bunch of others, while hitting a really good weakness, and then a second attack which should be pretty good at taking out V-Stars. Yeah. Between Arceus and Gritty Pickaxe, you should have the energy acceleration you need. And honestly, when it comes to fighting Pokemon VMAXs, this is my favourite. And I've gone over to pkmncards.com, great place to go and search out card stuff, and I've gone and just searched for all the fighting type Pokemon VMAX, because I can. I like this more than any of them. Right, when I say that, I'm excluding the Urshifu, okay? The reason I'm excluding the Urshifu is because they are Single Strike and Rapid Strike Pokemon, and they really work as Single Strike and Rapid Strike Pokemon. So I don't think it's fair to really compare them to regular VMAXs. Yes, I am aware that they are really good. But against stuff like Stonejourner or Colossal, which I've seen before, no. They're not even close. This is way better than them. I really, really genuinely like this. And this is one of those situations where I am absolutely willing to be wrong, but I don't think I'm going to be wrong about this. I really genuinely like this. If this does end up being one of the last VMAXs, do remember it has been confirmed that we will have VMAXs in the Pokemon Go set. But if this turns out to be on the tail end of VMAXs, I think we're ending, or, getting close, with a pretty strong one. I like this. I'm giving it 4 Wassies. And that could end up being a little bit low. If you want a fighting type VMAX, and bearing in mind fighting is a great type right now, you could do an awful lot worse than Machamp. Now, there are a couple of other cards we need to mention just quickly here. We finally had a second look at Kleavor VSTAR, and we have found out that the first attack is 2 energy, 1 fighting, 1 colorless, 120. plus 60 to one of your opponent's bench. It's annoying because we saw it before when it was shown off in the V-Star Premium Collection, but we didn't get a good look, and the amount of damage from both the attacks was, well, hidden. Now, the good news is the sell sheet basically told us that the V-Star Power was 1 energy, 30 damage for each Pokemon in your discard pile, which I really like. We didn't know how much damage Axe Break does. 120 to the active, 60 to the bench. So you're 2-hit KOing Pokemon V while doing 60 to the bench. That's quite nice. It's not perfect, but it's 2 energy. It's a decent attack. I'd generally rather have 2 energy on Machamp and be doing 220 if it's all the same to you guys. But I still think that there is absolutely potential in this. And I rather like this, ladies and gentlemen. This could be kind of cool. We still don't know the HP, annoyingly. We've had 2 looks, one in Japanese, one in English. We still don't know the amount of HP that this card has. It's on the poster, and annoyingly, we still don't have a good enough look at the poster. And it is actually, it's there on the poster, but unfortunately nobody's taken a good enough close-up of it, and that's a little bit sad. Never mind. I still don't think this first attack is going to break Kleavor VSTAR, but I do think in decks like Wormadam that look to try and get as many Pokemon in the discard as they can, I think this is a really good attack. And certainly when I'm playing Wormadam, and you know I'm going to be playing Wormadam, I am going to be teching in a 1-1 Kleavor VSTAR just to see if it works, because it looks great. Now, the other card we've got here is Featherball, and look, we don't have a perfect look at it, all right? The image on screen is not great. The lovely Antoine Boulet has told us that they're unable to read it because it's too blurry, and yeah, it's clearly very blurry. But apparently, somebody who shared the pics has said that what it does is it's a ball that searches for any Pokemon that has no retreat cost, which, to be fair, if you think about Featherball in Legends Arceus, this does make a bunch of sense. This does kind of work. So you know what? Yeah, this could be kind of cool. The problem is it's really, really, really specific. Now, obviously, I've gone over to pkmncards.com and, just search for all the Pokemon with free retreat, and there are some relevant ones out there. So, for instance, the 2 that spring to mind straight away are Mew, because both Mew V and Mew VMAX have free retreat, and Jolteon, because both Jolteon V and Jolteon VMAX have free retreat. They're the 2 that jump to mind straight away, because, if I'm playing, a 4-4 line, or a 4-3 line, or 3-3 line, or at least a heavy line, then it's going to be worth it. This is not going to replace cards like Ultra Ball or Quick Ball, because Ultra Ball and Quick Ball can get a significantly wider range of Pokemon. If you can find a deck that plays only free retreat Pokemon, this becomes one of the best cards in the game, because you can search for any Pokemon with no downside at all, which is nuts. But then, we've still got your support Pokemon, things like Lumineon, which doesn't have free retreat. So, this strikes me as there are going to be some decks out there that play a bunch of Pokemon with free retreat, like Jolteon, like Mew, and in those decks, playing this as a 2-of or something like that could end up being pretty gosh darn good. The problem is all the support Pokemon we have at the moment really don't have free retreat, so we are looking for attackers and using it as an occasional thing. And it's not amazing. I mean, in the format at the moment, including alternate art prints and cards from celebrations which aren't tournament legal, we got 70 cards with free retreat. And like I say, you can just get rid of a bunch of those because of celebrations and reprints, etc. There are 70 cards, but 3 of them are Mew V and 3 of them are Mew VMAX. And 3 of them are Jolteon V. My point is, there aren't that many around at the moment. Although I do think in decks like Jolteon and Mew, as maybe a 2-of, yes, there is an awful lot of utility here. For me, I am psyched about Machamp VMAX, and maybe it won't end up being any good, and that's okay, not every card is, but it's definitely got a chance. We got a bit of an update on Kleavor VSTAR, but I still think the VSTAR power is what really makes that card good, and then we've got Featherball, which I think is going to see play, but it is clearly a very niche card that is only going to work in some decks. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think about all of these, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.